Hey, it's Kellen.
And of course, A.L.
And today, all the way from the Dominican Republic vacation spot, we have somebody who's going to show you how to buy and sell off his app, Sellapp. We have the CEO, Mr. Keith White, all the way from the Dominican Republic. How are you doing, sir?
Great, thank you. That was a great announcement.
Well, I'm trying to get warmed up just off your energy. So it's gonna. I'm putting a lot of pressure on you to say warm us up while I suffer in Seattle, A.L suffers in New York, and you are in the Dominican Republic. Hopefully on a great work and vacation, because I know as CEO entrepreneurs we never stop. So tell us. I just want to know first what's going on in the DR.
Well, DR actually is really like a second home to me. I've been actually coming to the DR for 20 years. Started here vacationing, and then just kind of fell in love with the place. And actually, about 7 years ago, I did a partnership with, at that time, one of the local wireless carriers in the country called Orange, actually with Sony Music Latin out of Miami and Orange. And so we were the first to put premium downloadable music on the cell phones of Orange's 3 million customers. So we built a platform that acted as the bridge between Sony Music's digital catalog and the wireless carrier Orange customers. And so, having loved the place, I decided to figure out a way to work here and was able to get that deal done. And that was really probably the first mobile venture I actually did anywhere in the world, was here right in the Dominican Republic. So I'm still here.
Wow. And you have a background, in just, a few things. I mean, you've worked with IBM and I can tell, with your limited amount of postings on LinkedIn that like you're a creative on the back end, probably the front end of tech. When did this love of tech and building platforms, and we'll get into Sellapp, which everybody downloads Sellapp right now from, I'll say, your Play Store and whatever you folks use for iPhone. I don't know, but you guys download it too in the Apple Store. I guess they call that small thing. But when did your love of tech come and hit you?
Well, really, it started, I would say, 2001. I owned a television syndication company, very similar to how Byron Allen got started. Actually, there were only three black television syndicators and distributors in the United States. Byron Allen was one in L.A. I was in D.C., and there was a guy by the name of Frank Mercado. And the model that Frank Mercado and I had was we actually licensed movies and TV shows and then redistributed them across the U.S., reaching 85 million TV households. Byron Allen created his own programming. And so with him clutching a deal with a television group that operated about 15 stations early on out of Baltimore, he was really kind of able to survive because he owned programming. So I do have to give him hats off to what he's been able to accomplish. But getting to your question, to 2001, as the internet was coming about and people were online and we were those sort of desktop modems, I decided to create a entertainment video streaming company called MVC1 because it was already tied in, for example, with a lot of the major studios and television national networks. And so really that was our first venture. And we got funding from a company called PSINet that used to have their name on the Baltimore Ravens Stadium for $1.2 million. And that was the beginning of my tech start.
Well, you're talking big money and big deals being done. I'm actually 2 weeks away from going to the NATPE in Miami. Is that something that you went to? Because I know Byron Allen has credit them for helping him build his TV, empire that he's built. Is that something that you've gone to?
Yes, I used to go to those conferences. In fact, that's really kind of how I linked up with a television syndication company called Baruch Syndication out of the Washington, D.C. area. And from that conference, I clinched my deal to get them to do our distribution. And we were the licensing arm. My company was the licensing arm in distribution and sales, not distribution, but licensing and placing some of the content that we license on network television in the various TV markets, and also responsible for the 30-second national ad sales. So yes, those conferences were very valuable in terms of networking and submitting deals.
Okay. Awesome. I'll make sure I'll bother you off camera to say any tips. This is my first year going to this one, and I hope to catch these deals. Can you tell us about Sellapp? Because when I look at it, I see it and I'm like, okay, this is great. And I have something on my phone. I started with the eBays, and then you have the offer ups, and there seems to be so many of these sell apps. The one difference I did see on Sellapp that I don't really see on any other platform is you have like fine art in the way that the interface is, and it looks good. And I even saw like a watch that I said, whoa, hold on, that thing is bling bling. I said, is Cash Money selling their jewelry on here? So I mean, what makes Sellapp stand out from the other platforms and unique?
Yeah, so sure. Thanks for asking that question. So, when we looked at the market, we saw sort of the run-of-the-mill peer-to-peer or consumer-to-consumer marketplace type platforms that, Let Go and Offer Up, just to mention two. And we didn't see vetted or filtered content coming into the platform. One of the things that has always worked well for me, even when I was distributing and licensing movies, was trying to get the best movies that our money could buy. So staying on the side of premium has always worked for me. And I noticed that there was no sort of peer-to-peer marketplace platform that was marketing or targeting sort of the premium side. So what we decided to do was create filters in each of our product categories that would not allow a buyer to sell a particular item, let's say a watch, under a certain price, because we associate a lower price being lower quality. So in having these filters in our product category, it naturally brought in sellers who were selling more premium and branded items. And so in addition to that, on the seller side, it also brought in buyers to connect with these sellers and to look at this product that's on our platform that had more discretionary income. So we stepped up the game in terms of adding more quality content and but more quality products to the app.
That's definitely impressive. Now, are there any, limitations in terms of how high a particular user can sell to another user? I know Kel mentioned a watch, but are there any caps, platform, restrictions?
No, there's none. I mean, we've had people put in cars on the platform, which we do have. And mentioning also, we also operate in Africa, Nigeria, so we license the platform to a group of investors in Nigeria. So you have products that might be more popular selling, let's say, in the U.S. versus, let's say, cars is a very popular category in Nigeria versus the U.S. And so you have different dynamics for different markets, but the key underlining foundation for our successful is that both the buyer and seller recognizes us as more of a premium platform, and that's how we're positioned in the market compared to the other ones that are out there.
So we could maybe buy like a Kantanka vehicle off the platform. That's the Ghana car. I've been trying to ask them, would you guys ship that over? And you can't get a straight answer because, you know, sometimes things are difficult to do. I just came back from Kenya a couple months ago. And so I've been trying to, you know, see how you can get one of those cars here, if America would even let it in and, you know, be on the road. But no, that's awesome. Can you give the folks the background? We really like on Diversified Game to give the game. And somebody listening to this says, wow, this all sounds great. Sounds like, you know, maybe he was born into money and maybe royalty. How did you get into of doing business? You come from money. Was your father a business person? Who were you coached by, mentored by? How did it begin?
I would have to say that, you know, entrepreneurship runs on both sides of my family, both in my mother's family as well as my father. My father was an amazing sales guy, you know, back in the 70s and 60s. So a little of that is in my blood. But when I was young, growing up in Tampa, my grandfather owned one of the top gas stations at that time. Was a Sellapp 66. And I used to work part-time after school and on the weekends at the gas station. So I was always around individuals that were entrepreneurial and successful. So those were role models. I wouldn't say that, you know, my family came from wealth. We were middle class, but I think that just the sort of instinct and drive was there, and ambition was there to, you know, stake out or go out on my own and find, you know, my own thing. And so I think with the ambition, with having seen, you know, African American men in particular being successful in their own businesses, you know, that was enough for me, you know, combined with an education that I got from Howard University, was enough for me once I was ready to step out on my own to do it.
And that education from Howard, which you know, HBCUs, attendances at all of them are going down, and people say, oh, that's progress. But I went to a private Christian school that yeah, had a good mix of us because we all played sports. But then I went to Grambling, and then I went to school prior to that pretty much with all Caucasian people. And I say there was no experience like Grambling. And I've been to Howard, and it's a similar vibe. How much of going to an HBCU do you credit to? And I mean, I guess the family background. It is like you always saw Black people doing business, so it wasn't weird or strange to you. Whereas on the West Coast, sometimes people are like, "You own that gas station," because they don't see that. But how much of going to Howard do you accredit to your ventures?
Oh, I mean, it was a big factor because, I mean, you got kids from all across the United States and internationally, you know, coming in to Howard with different backgrounds, different experiences, different levels of family income or wealth. Not everybody certainly going to Howard came from a wealthy family. So you got to see kind of a really diverse melting pot of many different people. And for me, at least, I was impressed because, you know, just having grown up in Florida and was primarily, we didn't really do a lot of traveling when I was young. That was kind of really the first true exposure to seeing such a dynamic, rich African-American cultural background and learning about what their families did and the kinds of businesses and professions they were in. You got to kind of really see firsthand or hear firsthand that, wow, there are African Americans that are out there that are, you know, next step away, homes, education, parents, very impactful. a lot of African American colleges, HSBCUs, you have, talent, celebrities, successful business people that come and visit the campuses. And so you get to identify with them. These are people you normally would see on TV or in the magazine. You never would have gotten to necessarily meet them. So all of those things were big factors in the education that you got there, and the collaboration that you interacted with and interchanged with in terms of other students. I mean, all of that was extremely powerful and was very impactful.
Excellent. So Keith, here's more of like a tech question for you. Considering receiving a tremendous amount of success with Sell.Me app, how does an app, I guess, creator, or what should future app creators keep in mind when considering adding new features, adding new functions? When you build it once, is that the end all be all? Would you mind sharing some insight on that?
Yeah. Depending on your discipline, I don't know if you would be the marketing person or the engineering person, but whoever you partner with, if you're the marketing person, you need a really good engineering person, because that person from the engineering side is going to be responsible for bringing your vision to market. And so it's extremely important to pick the right engineering team or person, because you'll find that a lot of people, a lot of engineers, a lot of developers, in this case, they won't tell you no, that they can't do the project. Who wants to turn down money? But not all of them have the skill sets to pull off what it is that you want. And so, I'll be quite honest with you, we had to go through 4 developers before we found the right one. We spent a couple $100,000 and probably lost really 2 years. So technically, Sellapp ended up being something different than when we first started, because it just kept evolving and the market kept changing. So it's critically important to obviously pick the right team member. And once you're able to get your product to market, it does not stop there. That's just, you're on the 40-yard line, and you still, have to get across the field goal. So you're always investing in improving the app, because you're going to see things, when the app is live, that you don't see in the development. That's just sort of par for the course, because now you're in the real world. So you're going to constantly be improving upon your app. So basically, your cost of just developing a product is one thing, but continuing to invest in it and improve it is going to be another thing. And then also on the marketing side, I think it's imperative to find the right digital marketing team if that's not your skill set, a team that's got proven talent. So, sort of it's a mix of all these things that you probably have to have in your playbook, that you absolutely have a playbook to carry your product forward and to move it forward and to hit certain new milestones.
So putting the team together, and you talk about losing 100,000. There's so many apps out there right now, and people are creating apps just so they can sell them. I'm in Seattle, where venture capital is so I don't want to say easy, but it's so accessible, to the point where we've turned down for ventures. We've said, no, we don't want any money for that right now. We're not ready. Maybe we don't want to be a partner with you. And people have been kind of shocked, like us. I've had my wife shocked for I'm like, no, we can't take that money. But can you talk about, when you're doing something like this, do you use your own money, or do you go find a VC or an angel investor? How was your process?
Well, my process was family and friends. So I was fortunate enough to have some friends over an extended period of time that have been very successful professionally. And I went to them, and they knew me. They didn't know the product. And it's almost like you're betting really on the jockey, not the horse. Horse being the product, you being the jockey. At that early stage, your family and friends are going to invest in you, because they may not know enough about your industry or about your product or about your application to know whether or not it's going to survive. And of course, I used some of my own money, but most of it was sweat equity. Where, I provided the leadership in the company for basic, salaries. I just happened to have a decent cushion that sustained me, and that allowed me to kind of focus on trying to get this to market full time. Because technically, who am I competing with? I'm competing with young entrepreneurs out of Silicon Valley, 22, 23, 24. They don't have any responsibility. May not have a mortgage or rent or credit cards or family. So they can spend 24 hours a day in the garage trying to think of the next best thing. So I had to be able to put myself in a position where I had free time in order to get this product to market. And so, it's kind of a long journey, and, it just never stops. I can understand why an entrepreneur may not want to take certain money early, because one, you have to know what your worth is, what your product worth is. If someone, and I've had many investors that have come to me when we needed money and said, okay, I'm going to, invest in your company. But basically what they were offering was 20 cents or 25 cents on the dollar. So why would I trade all that I put into this company because someone thinks that we're desperate and they could take advantage of that situation? Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say no, but I can guarantee you I've always found the money, and I was able to sleep at night. So oftentimes when you're an entrepreneur, when you don't have a lot of access to cash, you're compromised. And so you just have to know your worth and know what you stand for. So, I mean, we endured all of that. I endured all of that, and we're still standing. So that's just par for the course.
That's definitely some gems right there, Keith. So to piggyback off of that, you building up to this point with your team, what's next for the Sellapp? Does it evolve into something else? Do you transition to building other apps? What does 2020 and beyond look like?
Well, our focus really, we are raising a Series A round currently to take the app to the next level. We are actually talking to partners and investors in other countries because we have the ability to export this, and we have the ability to prove that this model works in any other country. So we are talking to investors in other countries. So our goal really is to, in the next 12 months, is to lock down our Series A and then hit a certain number of milestones in terms of users. Our first year, we were just primarily focused on user growth. So when we launched January of 2019, the entire year last year is all focused on user growth. Now in 2020, we'll focus on revenue growth. So there are some other property assets that we're looking at in terms of sort of similar ideas that are in the space that are not being touched by the competition, that have a lot of synergy to the product that we have. And so we're talking to partners in that area as well. So we've got a lot on our plate right now, which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing. I mean, the progress and the progress, and I can hear like a young entrepreneur saying, okay, while you're building that business and you're going through your series rounds, how do I sustain? And we talk all the time. I mean, we're consultants, we're PR people, we're marketers, so we always have various projects going on. So when we have like another project that it might be a passion project to start, we have something to sustain us. You coming from, that kind of that tech background, what are things that you do while you're waiting for one thing to happen that you do to make money, to make the ends meet that others could possibly do?
I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of unique in this situation. I have not actually focused on anything else, to be quite honest with you. And I'm not saying that, every entrepreneur should take that path, because it's extremely difficult. But again, I happen to have some savings in place, and my expenses were extremely low, over the last number of years. I mean, for a while, I didn't have a car. I didn't have credit cards. I didn't have sort of the usual things that, would drag along and tie you down in terms of, having to work somewhere so that you can make these monthly payments. And so I was kind of really fortunate in that situation. And I know that that's not, the case for everybody. So you can still do something that's consulting oriented while you're building on your platform until you can get a significant amount of capital that can sustain and provide a salary for the people in the company. So, my situation, as I said, was just very unique. I had some savings, and my expenses extremely dirt cheap.
Okay, awesome. I can hear someone say, and it's always that hater, it must be nice. I hate that when people say, oh, it must be nice. And it's like, yeah, I work hard and it must be nice,
Yeah, but the thing too is that I traded, not having a salary for a number of years, and it was not necessarily a good thing because the thing took longer than what I imagined. But I had already gotten a number of investors to invest, and I didn't want them to lose their money just because I didn't necessarily could do X, Y, and Z that people probably my age could do. No, I'd rather just make the sacrifice, sit tight, and wait till we can turn the corner so that the company survives. Because if I walked away, or if I gave up, or I had to dedicate my time to something else full time, going back to what I said earlier, I know that I was in competition with trying to come up with something that millions of kids sitting in their garage, they have no responsibility, no expenses, was trying to do as well. Everybody's trying to come up with the next best sort of Facebook kind of thing. So it was just a personal choice that I made. And so I wanted to give all that I could and do all that I could and focus to make sure that I could, one, get this product to market, because really, you really are not taken seriously until you can get a product to market. And then two, it doesn't stop there. A lot of investors want to see some revenue. So, it just kind of is a never ending thing. And that wasn't something that I necessarily had a playbook in advance to know, but I kind of went through the trials and tribulations until, I got to that point, and I just happened to make the sacrifice. But, I'm certainly not going to sit here and pretend that it was easy. It certainly wasn't.
Okay. Now, this comes up a lot, with people that I've encountered. And you may mention that you're embarking upon raising money for your Series A. How does, being the CEO of your company and, kind of directing things, how do you put yourself in position with your investors to say, this is what we believe the company is valued at, and how do you know what to ask for once you acquired that valuation?
Well, it's kind of a tricky thing because you can certainly, use comparables of similar companies in the market and say, okay, at Series A round, they raised X, Y, and Z, or at Series C, they raised X round. Well, that may be true, but maybe it's kind of a Jack Dorsey kind of person sitting in Silicon Valley that's got all these relationships and connections. I think really, in reality, that's not the case for most, tech startups, particularly African Americans. And so I think what you kind of really have to focus on is, at this particular stage, what is the amount of capital, the least amount of capital you think you need to reach the next couple of milestones, big milestones, and then, tie a valuation to that. Because if your valuation is ridiculously high, you're not going to get any deal. So I think that you just kind of have to be reasonable, and you have to kind of look at and take stock. Okay, I don't have the relationships in Silicon Valley. I don't have this, I don't have that, but this is what we need to get to the next big milestone. And then tie evaluation to that. It doesn't matter whether or not, a company in your industry at this particular stage or the stage that you're at raise a ridiculous amount of money. That's not going to factor in. So, those kind of sweetheart deals kind of tend to only happen in Silicon Valley. The rest of the United States doesn't play that game. So I think that, as an entrepreneur, you've got to be really realistic and take stock of, okay, what do you need over the next 18 months? And how can you run a lean organization and operation that's inexpensive without, putting a valuation on this is going to really make people walk away. So I think this is kind of, there's the Silicon Valley, what you read, and then there's reality. I think that those are two opposite worlds.
And you talk about the relationships that happen in the Silicon Valley as a connector, and that's what I tell people pretty much what my job is to do. How did you get connected in Africa? Did they come to you, or have you been traveling Africa, and has that then, you kept meeting enough people? But talk about your Africa connection.
Yeah, so it was very simple, but it wasn't something that I was sort of zeroing in on. So daily or certainly every week, I'm combing through LinkedIn and other reading articles on different things, and just so happened there was a guy that was a principal partner at KPMG at that time in Nigeria that had written something that was talking to me, in terms of what he wrote. It was like, wow, this is kind of a fit with what I'm doing. And basically I wrote him through LinkedIn. He wrote back. The conversation started from there. He came to New York. I met him in New York. I went to Lagos. We chatted there and we got a deal done, and that's kind of how it started. It wasn't really me on LinkedIn every day looking for an investor. It just so happened in my daily reading and keeping up that this guy wrote something that was a fit to me, and I reached out to him, and it started from there. And then since then, I've been to Kenya. I was actually in Kenya really probably about 2 months ago. I've been in South Africa, going to Ghana with the state of Florida on a trade mission. So now Africa is starting to open up to me as a result of that deal that I got done in Nigeria.
I knew you looked familiar, Keith. I thought I saw you. We were in Kenya around the same time. Were you at the Kopinski?
You know what? I was so busy, and that was my first time in Kenya. I got dropped in Nairobi, and 80% was just on meetings, and I was all over the place. I don't really know where I was, and really like only the last day and a half before I left did I really got a chance to kind of get out and do something. So we could have run into each other.
Oh, wow. Okay, we brought 30 people to Kenya with a client's platform, and most of them had never been to Africa before. So we were at the Kopinski, and so that's usually where people doing business, if they don't stay there, they at least go have a meeting there because it's a beautiful place, and where Obama and all the presidents go when they go to Kenya, or their wives. That's awesome. And please keep us posted on the what's going on in Africa, because Africa is just wide open right now. And why should we not get a piece of that? I think we should be, right there with the Chinese, adding our value and our skills. And so, no, I'd love to hear more on that. And if anybody out there is listening, from Rwanda or anywhere else that he hasn't mentioned, reach out and see where you can strike a deal, and how things can, how Sellapp and everything else. Sellapp is your focus, I know, right now, but in your other time, I don't like to call off time for an entrepreneur, what are your interests? I mean, do you play the guitar, the piano, live band?
I actually read a lot, and I go to the gym, and quite frankly, I get to travel to some amazing places. So when I do travel, unfortunately, Kenya was time pressed because there was a specific reason why I was there, and it wasn't very long. But culturally, I do, when I travel, do like to learn about the cultures in the country that I'm in. So traveling is one big thing. Working out is the second one, and I read a lot. So I would say those three.
Solid, solid, solid. Keep. What was the last great book you've read?
I read, well, there is this one sort of startup on startup financing and things like that. I couldn't actually tell you the title because I don't really absorb the titles. I just kind of read them and grab them as I can. But what I do is I do a lot of reading online. So I'm constantly keeping up with what's changing in the industry, what's happening in my space, following the research, looking at competitors in terms of the moves that they are making. So I'm constantly engaged. I don't really kind of focus on titles. I do read a lot. So to ask me what the last title was, I probably have two in my backpack here in the Dominican Republic, and it could was it, but generally, business.
Fair enough, fair enough. Um, and then my
Well, actually, I just grabbed it. It's called the. I just grabbed it. It's called The Art of the Startup Fundraising by Alejandro Quimetas.
solid, solid, solid. And my follow up to that would be Keith, with every guest that we do have here on Diversified Game, we definitely like to peel the layers back. And we appreciate you sharing so much of your insight and how you've gotten to the point where you are today. What we also like to look into is that with all the impact that you've made, are there any charitable causes or community give back that really, move you, touch your soul, touch your spirit, that you want to contribute to the next young man or young lady?
What we actually just did here in the Dominican Republic is we've done this 2 years straight. On December 6th is their big day. It's a holiday for it's kind of the day of kings and queens that they give toys to kids. I mean, they do it around Christmas time as well, but this is kind of a bigger day. So we just did a fundraiser for 50 kids where we donated toys to kids, underprivileged kids in a small city in the Dominican Republic called Benin. And so it was really a great experience to see a kid receive something and get a smile on their face. And so it, reciprocal, you get a smile on your face and you do something to start the new year out right. We did that just a few days ago in the Dominican Republic, and we also did it last year in the capital in Santo Domingo. So normally when I travel, what I like to try to do when I have the time and I can coordinate it, I did it actually last year in Ethiopia in Addis Ababa, is go into a school and talk to kids about entrepreneurship, talk to them about their dreams and their aspirations and things that they love to do. So I'm always, I wouldn't say always, I would say certainly a couple times a year, finding ways to make sure that I contribute back.
Impressive. Thank you.
Keith and I are traveling around the same time to the same places. I haven't done the Dominican Republic yet, but I need to do it right now. But with the weather. But how did you like Addis? And did you go to Mekelle or any other regions while you were there?
No, I was just in Addis Ababa. I really loved it. I mean, people were just genuinely nice. I felt safe. The culture is just rich in heritage. And it was just kind of really amazing. as Americans, and particular African Americans, we need to reconnect with the continent, wherever that might be: East Africa, South Africa, West Africa. It's just, when you go there, you kind of feel like home. So, and so I'm doing a lot more traveling into Africa. I'm going to Ghana early February, and then actually maybe in Nairobi shortly thereafter, as a follow-up to while I was there, a couple of weeks ago. So, Ethiopia is just amazing. I love Ethiopia, and I would definitely go back.
Okay, yeah, it's an awesome place, and there are some things there that I'll just say, if import export, there's some things you can bring in, some things you can't, but it's such a rich culture. I'm more of a fan of Mekelle than Addis. Addis is nice, but Mekelle is even more chill, and you can see that the Chinese are putting up massive hotels there that folks are really running to, and it's just a beautiful time. So you're doing a lot for our folks in Ghana, and I'm going to share this, and I'm going to thank our friend Don, the Sam from South Africa, who put us together, she's always thinking about me, and appreciate it. Because this is how things connect. This is how I connected with Keith. I get a WhatsApp. Hey, you got to meet this guy. He's in South Africa doing big business, spending all the rand. He has helicopters, flying, just doing grand stuff. the way we're supposed to do it when we travel out of the country. So yeah, just beautiful time. Let the people know. I'm going to let them know in the description. Link for the Sellapp will be there. But if there are any serious people who want to do business with you, what is the best way for them to contact you?
They can contact me at support@sellapp.me. support@sellapp.me.
Okay. Well, no, this has been awesome. I want to thank you for coming on and giving us the game on the Sellapp, and we will talk again, because I'm even thinking when you are making that next push for the money, some other media for a client of ours that has a great platform on YouTube that you could come on and give more inspiration and just give the game all day. So I appreciate you.